All right, so today we're not just doing a history lesson. No, we're diving headfirst into a real drama. I'm talking about a story of a guy pushed right to the edge, a story of conviction, of rebellion, and it all comes down to a single sentence that would change everything. This is the story of Frederik Grundtvig, a man who became known as the Inconvenient pastor.
So to really get this guy, you've got to picture the world he was living in. We're talking about the early 1800s. Europe, it was basically a continent on fire. You've got Napoleon marching all over the place, redrawing maps. It was this incredible age of revolution, right? Old empires were just crumbling, and new, radical ideas were clashing with the old guard. And I mean violently.
But amidst all that epic, world-changing chaos, our story zooms way in. We're focusing on just one person, a Danish pastor, Frederik Grundtvig. And while nations were literally at war, he was fighting a totally different kind of battle, one that was happening entirely inside of him, a really deep, personal crisis of faith. And what's so fascinating is that his personal turmoil, it was like a mirror image of what his entire country was going through. See, Denmark itself was having a major identity crisis. We're talking a complete and utter collapse on the European stage.
And man, the downfall was fast and brutal. So Denmark, they basically bet on the wrong horse. They sided with Napoleon, and the fallout was just catastrophic. First, in 1807, bam, the British Navy just bombards Copenhagen. Then, a few years later, 1814, the Treaty of Kiel lands like a gut punch, forcing them to hand over Norway to Sweden. The result of all this? Total, absolute humiliation. The country is financially ruined, it's just broken.
And right as the nation hits rock bottom, Grundtvig is at his own personal rock bottom. He's dealing with these severe, recurring bouts of depression that just shake him to his core. It's like he's feeling all of the nation's despair as his own personal pain. But here's the thing. It's out of that exact darkness that his most powerful, most fiery convictions are about to be born.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the conflict. Because, see, Grundtvig didn't just sit around in despair. No way. He took all that pain, all that frustration, and he channeled it into this burning fury. And he aimed it right at the one institution he was supposed to be serving, the church.
His whole argument was actually pretty simple. He believed the Danish church had basically become a cold, dead bureaucracy, It was all about rules and complicated theology, but it had completely lost the plot. It had forgotten that faith is supposed to be this living, breathing, powerful thing in people's lives, not just some dusty old textbook.
And he was not quiet about this. Not at all. The historical texts actually describe his writing as having a furious passion. I mean, he looked around and saw this deep spiritual sickness in his country, and he was absolutely convinced he had the cure. But to actually deliver that cure, well, that meant he was going to have to go to war with the entire religious establishment.
But here's the twist. This wasn't just a fight against some big, faceless institution. No, it all boiled down to a deeply personal, face-to-face confrontation with the one man who represented everything he was trying to tear down.
And get this, that man was his own cousin, Jacob Peter Meinster. Meinster was the golden boy, a rising star in the church, super powerful, super respected. He was the definition of an insider. And Grundtvig? Well, he was about to become the ultimate outsider.
I mean, you really couldn't have two more different worldviews clashing. On one side, you've got Grundtvig, the rebel, right? He's all about passionate, living faith. He sees the church as just lazy and complacent. And then on the other side, you've got Meinster, the company man. He's all about order, reason, keeping things stable. To him, Grundtvig wasn't some visionary, he was just a problem, a disruptive, maybe even dangerous force.
So Grundtvig figures, okay, I can't win this fight from the outside looking in. He gets filled with this righteous fire, and he decides he's going to take the fight right to his cousin's doorstep, right into the heart of the establishment. He's going to force a showdown over his ideas for a totally new way of preaching. Just try to picture this scene, okay? Grundtvig walks in, he's full of passion and hope, and he lays out all his radical ideas for making the church feel alive again. And Meinster? He just sits there, listening. Cold. Dismissive. There's no argument, not even a discussion. It's just like hitting a brick wall of disapproval. And in that freezing cold silence, it all clicks for Grundtvig. He gets it. He doesn't belong here. And then he says the line. It's not shouted, there's no anger. It's just said with this quiet, soul-crushing clarity. He looks at his cousin, the man who is the face of the church's power,
and he just says,
Jeg indser nok, jeg er kommet til ulejlighed.
which means, I realize I have become an inconvenience. But don't mistake that for a surrender. It was the exact opposite. It was a declaration. It was him finally accepting his role. He was an inconvenience to the way things were, and in that one moment, he realized that wasn't a bad thing. It was necessary. Heck, it was his true calling.
So this moment, which looks like a total failure, was actually the spark. This was the beginning of everything for him. By finally embracing that he was an outsider, Grundtvig basically set the GPS for the rest of his life's work.
That one confrontation basically forged him in fire. It cemented who he was. Not just some small-town pastor, but a full-blown reformer. It kicked him out of the mainstream, which actually freed him up to challenge authority everywhere, not just in the church, but in education and national culture, you name it. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, it proved that one person's conviction, even if it makes you inconvenient, can absolutely stand up to the crushing weight of institutional power.
And that really leaves us with a huge question, one that goes way beyond 19th century Denmark, right? Grundtvig chose to be a disruptor, an inconvenience, because he truly believed the system was failing the very people it was supposed to help. And it just makes you think, doesn't it? When is just going along with things the bigger danger? When is it absolutely necessary for someone to stand up and make the choice to become an inconvenience?